both. Okay.
I think we can.
Well, I just started.
Oh, I have to ask you permission.
Oh, okay. So you might only have to do one then.
Congratulations on your bass, Sarah.
Thank you.
Those clawfoot bass are the best.
Yeah, and it's been so sad not being able to use it.
Yeah, like for that long. You're like,
Yeah.
ooh.
But now that there's 4 people in this house all sharing one shower, it's just gotten grosser and grosser, or like
4
harder
people?
to keep up. Yeah.
Who's the 4th?
Me, Justin, Angie, and Stephanie.
Angie.
Yeah, my sister lives here.
Oh, she lives there too? Oh my God. What a fun house. I'm so jealous.
I think I gave you permission, Kayla, so you should try now.
Every which way house.
Who's that?
Yes, this is going to work. Thank you very much. I think we can get
Okay.
started.
All right. So, how do I share that way? So, I'm going to share my screen in a minute. So today's class is based off of one of Kayla's sayings. Well, I've heard it from a few different people now, but Kayla was really the first person that taught me that you are not only what you eat, but you are also what you absorb from what you eat and what you do not excrete. And that is involved in more than just food too. So that's kind of in life in general. You are what you bring in, hold on to, and let go of. So we're going to go through that. And if at any point you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, say something, you have an anecdote or something to add, feel free. Okay. It's kind of hard to see now. Okay, cool. So you can see that big, the full PowerPoint, is that right? Is that what you guys are seeing? Okay. Try to see Zoom a little easier. Sorry, I have 2 monitors and this is really weird. Okay, now I can see you all. So what are you made of? I do have a little bit of like medical philosophy in here because I really do want to talk about this with other people. So please, let's get juicy with this material because a lot of my basis for it is like questions, current questions about how we view healing and nutrition. So start off with, you are what you eat. That is what you do take in, what you choose to put in your body. Also what you don't choose because like the environment, right? Like you're in an ecosystem in which you're taking things in even if you're not putting them in your body. What you absorb, what you want to take in, what your body does hold on to, what your body does want to use as nutrients, and then what you do not excrete, so what you don't want to take in, what your body doesn't want to utilize. That has a lot to do with your general health, because even if it's something that your body should be taking in and you're excreting it, that could lead to an issue. Yeah, the fact that we excrete so well as humans is one of the reasons we're alive. So it's not just what you eat, but it's also what you absorb and what you excrete too. So holistic principles. The philosophy of holistic principles is characterized by comprehension of the parts of something as intimately interconnected and explicable only by reference to the whole. So that is to say that we are parts of the whole. So our body is like that. I think about our body as like a symphony. I think of nutrition as a symphony, and like we need all these different little parts to do metabolism. And so this brings self and other into our awareness. And then holistic medicine is characterized by the treatment of the whole person, taking into account other mental and social factors rather than just the symptoms of the disease. As herbalists, we treat people, not diseases. And so this is bringing the idea of sick and healthy into our awareness and about balance. We'll talk more about that too.
Hey,
And
Sarah,
we'll come back to that. Yeah.
I think we're greater than the sum of our parts.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the, like, we are parts, but we are parts within ourselves, but then we are also, as human beings, interconnected as well. So within medicine and healing, our internal selves combined with this holistic idea that we are also pieces of a whole in general. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I think being greater than the sum of our parts is the magic in between the cells.
Oh, the space in between, you say? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So metabolism is actually, you really don't need to speed up your metabolism to lose weight. I'm just going to say that. That's a bunch of BS. It has nothing, the metabolism, again, is the symphony of all the little, you know, you eat a bite of food and your body immediately goes into this symphony of utilizing it, and your body was already doing all these little tiny intimate processes before you even put the food in your body, but now those nutrients are going to change the reaction of everything, and it does all break down into how we metabolize specifically fats, proteins, carbs, and how we use our micronutrients, but we're going to talk about more of those specifically next class. And so this week is about well, hopefully by the end you kind of have a good foundation for what I'm trying to say here. So metabolism is a series of chemical reactions that cells use to maintain structure and balance of the body. So structure and balance. And it's actually two processes, catabolism or catabolism. I've heard some of all these pronounced different ways. Primarily breaks down the molecules from our food into smaller pieces that our cells can use. So like I said, like your food is broken down into carbs, proteins, and fats. And those get rebuilt according to what your body actually needs. So anabolism involves the construction of those smaller units. So constantly breaking down, is it in Hinduism, Shiva, the creation, the destruction. I should have got that right before just trying to make that. But do you know, like the archetypal creation, destruction, creation, destruction? We do that on a cellular level constantly. Kayla, did you want to say something? Oh, let me unmute you. You try to unmute yourself. There you go.
It's Kali.
Kali. And
It's the goddess Kali.
Kali Ma.
Yeah, Kali Ma. She's the great destroyer and the great mother.
Isn't she one of the three faces? And the destruction, which allows for the recreation. And so that's kind of how I. Huh?
That's Kit.
She is the lover of Shiva, and Shiva stands beneath her or lays down beneath her, and she stands on top of him.
On top of him with the arm in the air.
Like he is the power of creation, and he is completely surrendered to the powers of destruction.
Mm. So metabolism is a lot like that. And metabolism itself is a cluster, and so you have these processes that only do certain things in certain parts of the body. There are cells just for your liver, there are cells just for your kidneys, and so again, those parts working with the whole, but also can be really specific to certain parts of the body that can go wrong. Things can go wrong in really specific parts of the body. So that relating to metabolic syndrome, which is also known as a disease cluster, which I think they call it metabolic syndrome if all five of these things are present. And high blood pressure, high blood sugar, visceral obesity, low HDL cholesterol. But I think that can also be an imbalance of the ratios, because HDL is like the good cholesterol and LDL is the bad cholesterol. And what really matters is the ratio of those things. So I think that is more of a, and high triglyceride levels, again, singular things. There can be a reason like that someone might have high triglyceride levels, and that's just really suits their body or their situation, but maybe they don't have any of these other things, and maybe they can manage it with their diet and their life situation. But I wanted to mention this because if there's a lot of things metabolically going wrong on little itty bitty levels, it can cause one of these things. And by the time you have many of these things, it's a separate issue entirely. And this is also, one of the reasons I put this in here is because this is what they're saying, is people are more susceptible to COVID with this combination. And so I wanted to, I guess, bring that into awareness. And like, if what I don't have all the answers for COVID, but I do know that we can treat this, and we can talk to people about this, and we can talk to people about prevention, which is like a basis of holistic health. And if this is our new normal, then let's focus on what we can focus on. So, and you can see on the left here, all the yellow, there's like the risk factors. And then drugs and environmental toxins come in. And again, the environmental toxins, you can't control the pathogens that are floating around in the air you walk through, but you do have some tools at your disposal with your own body, and because you don't want it to go any further than that. So along those lines, we're going to talk about prevention. And so prevention, this is a holistic principle that the prevention saves the labor of getting sick, and that our bodies do get sick but have great capacity for self-healing. Not everyone, I don't know how all doctors look at getting sick, or that we always need healing from external sources, but I think to some capacity, I mean, our body does heal itself. You get cut and some magic like brings the skin back together. It's an amazing self-healing contained ecosystem. So you can be part of your healing, but it means being a part of your sickness too. So prevention, being the best medicine, means also being in tune and aware of your body. Changes that can happen in your body, you can actually, and not always, right? Like when I was writing this slide, I was like, but Sarah, what about those people who don't know they're pregnant until they have a baby? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't explain that. But if you can tune into the little nuances of your body, your own subjective experiences of your body and your emotions and your feelings, you're more likely to notice when there's a change. And so when there is a change and there is a sickness, coming back to that awareness and being able to, especially with herbs, like, do I need something cooling? Do I need something warming? Do I need an expectorant? Do I need, is it something in my blood? Where is it going? And that being aware of your sickness and having body awareness can tell you how to deal with it. So an embodied self-inquiry might be, like right now, healthy or sick, what do I need right now? And this is a huge part of nutrition. Cravings, I think, are really interesting, because some people say that you're craving what your body actually needs. And I think that could be true, but if you're always craving like chocolate, that might be something else. Maybe you do need magnesium, but maybe you just also really like chocolate, and that could, so always having like, what do I need / what do I want, and being able to balance that responsibility. What is happening in my body? I think this is when you work with herbs, being really nuanced in those feelings that certain things, like, does anyone have an herbal infusion that they know that just puts them in the right place? You know, like, or is there a certain herb that you know is just, I know that this is what I need for this moment?
Burdock.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. All the time.
So good.
Make some burdock today, actually. And regulation, what are my patterns? Again, that's the pattern of what I need versus what I want. And they are probably the same thing sometimes. You know, that's, I'm not trying to make a huge differentiation there, but so prevention when it comes to medicine is something that, you know, we all have some tools at our disposal to handle that. So, and then I like this quote down here: healing is a matter of time, but sometimes it's also a matter of opportunity, because I mean, sometimes you got to keep going, and being sick can't hold you back. And so herbalism can also come to our help there, and nutrition as well. Because what's the difference really? Okay, so balances to consider. We're going to come back to these kind of throughout, but I do want to put these in your mind. There's an ebb and flow that we're going to talk about. Like we already mentioned, the enclosed ecosystem of our bodies versus our environment. And so we're going to talk about the ebb and flow and get used to the idea of pieces of a whole and what that means. So hot and cold, damp and dry, tense and lax. These are the 6 tissue states. Jim McDonald and Matthew Wood both talk about these. I'm sure, I don't know if you've talked about these so far in first year yet. I mean, a little bit. And so they're really interconnected, but it's good to see them on separate levels. So keep that in mind, as well as the 4 elements: earth, water, fire, and air. And these are embodied qualities as well as archetypal. Like Greek medicine, a lot of herbalism is really based on the idea that one plant could be associated with one more than the other. Also, the elements are kind of associated with different body parts, and so can have an effect on different body parts, as well as ways of being. Like you might be more of an earthy person, you might be more of a watery person. I'm more of an airy person, and that's why I love earthy people, because they kind of balance out what I contrast what is in me versus what's out of me. Solid, liquid, and gas are the 3 states of matter. This is important both in how we take in nutrition and how we excrete nutrition. So we take in gases, liquids, and solids, and we excrete gases, liquids, and solids. We are the matter. We are made of the same things. Above, below, without, within. This, as above, so below, I'm sure you've heard. As without, so within. Just bringing those concepts into this realm as well. And then again, what you want, what you don't want, and what you do. This can happen metabolically, like we were saying, what your body does want to absorb, what your body doesn't want to absorb. And then what you do is what you eat versus what you don't eat. This is your will, which is representative of like the things that happen that are out of your control entirely. So it is both and. So to start with, you are what you eat. You might have heard the phrase Hippocratic said, "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." It wasn't until I put this picture here that I added these next slides, which I only want to go over really quick, or maybe not really quick. I would love to hear other people's thoughts on this, because I put in, these are just the first parts of the Hippocratic Oath, and maybe this is where there can be some discussion, because, and then I have the updated Hippocratic Oath, a modern Hippocratic Oath. So this is the oath that doctors take before tending to the sick, or becoming a doctor, but it's about how they heal their oath to do no harm, you know. So this original says, I swear by Apollo physician, and I don't know how to pronounce these names, but all the gods and goddesses, making them my witness, that I will fulfill according to my ability and judgment this oath and this covenant, to hold him who has taught me this art as equal to my parents, and to live my life in partnership with him, and if he is in need of money, to give him a share of mine, and to regard his offspring as equal to my brothers in male lineage, and to teach them this art, if they desire to learn it, without fee and covenant, to give a share of precepts and oral instruction and all the other learning to my sons and to the sons of him who has instructed me, and to peoples who have signed the covenant and have taken an oath according to the medical law, but no one else. I will apply dietetic measures for the benefit of the sick according to my ability and judgment. I will keep them from harm and injustice. I will neither give a deadly drug to anybody who asks for it, nor will I make a suggestion to this effect. Similarly, I will not give to a woman an abortive remedy. In purity and holiness, I will guard my life and my art. And then it goes on. But I thought this was I just think it's really beautiful and interesting, especially to compare it to the modern Hippocratic Oath. And I'm only reading this out loud, maybe if you can't see the screen. I'm sorry if it's I know it's a lot of text for one slide. But the modern Hippocratic Oath says, I swear to fulfill, to the best of my ability and my judgment, this covenant. I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk, and gladly share such knowledge as is mine with those who are to follow. I will apply, for the benefit of the sick, all measures which are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism. I will remember that there is an art to medicine as well as a science, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. I will not be ashamed to say I know not, nor will I fail to call in my colleagues when the skills of another are needed for a patient's recovery. Above all, I must not play at God. I will remember that I do not treat a fever chart, a cancerous growth, but a sick human being whose illness may affect the person's family and economic stability. My responsibility includes those related problems if I am to care adequately for the sick. I will prevent disease wherever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. And then it goes on as well. So, any thoughts on that? I'm really curious if anything stood out to you. I do want to have a discussion about this. Or not, maybe it's not interesting at all.
Well, I just find it kind of ironic, that last line, I will prevent disease wherever I can, for prevention is preferable to cure. I don't see the industry pointing in that direction at all. As far as prevention, it's all
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're so right, because it's more like repair it after it's broken instead of prevention.
right.
Education.
Yeah, which I think it goes back to, like, we forget how the body can heal itself. And I mean, I guess there is an art to medicine, and that warmth, sympathy, and understanding may outweigh the surgeon's knife or the chemist's drug. And I haven't been in the hospital in a long time, but I mean, the stories I hear, I don't necessarily.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. That was the part that I was going to mention that I thought was really astounding. I've never read this before, either one of them. And yeah, we were talking last time about how we're just treated like machines. And it seems like so far away from this core, you know? So it's, yeah, that's really interesting.
I love also the contrast between the original. We start out, we're swearing to the gods and goddesses, right? And then the updated is the first line, you know, I will respect the hard-won scientific gains. I mean, like, what a contrast to be like, I pray to the myths and then I pray to science. And, you know, I think we're putting our reverence in. And this was only rewritten in the 60s. So I think it's really, really indicative of, especially where we are now, to kind of look back and be like, how did we get here? You know? So, Kayla, do you have anything? You look like you're thinking.
Oh, I'm always thinking. Well, yes, I find that interesting. I was sitting here thinking about the gods and goddesses they were praying to.
Mm-hmm.
Eclipsius and Hygeia,
Hygeia.
and then Panacea.
Panacea.
And of course, pandemic is named after Panacea, so it's the opposite of the panacea. But what I find interesting in the observation between the two of them is one is based on a spiritual desire, and one is based on seemingly factual evidence. Although I'm not so sure just because it's said that's actually what is done.
And seemingly factual, just science is about what we can prove. And, you know, we can prove things that aren't necessarily true.
Right, exactly. That's part of my point there too, is we can prove things that are not true. And we prove that every day in the way we live and how we can perceive something and see exactly the same thing or hear exactly the same thing, and yet perceive it so very differently from one another. And so I think that, show me the new one again, because I find it to be the most curious.
Yeah, I will be ashamed to say I know not.
And they don't, you know, why do they have to vow to not play God? Because maybe they don't believe in God, or maybe they believe in something different than God.
I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, it's like, go ahead, play God if you want to, you know, just fix the problem.
Well, because that's kind of the idea, is that you're trusting in someone who's not your body to heal you, in which case they are the miracle worker in your life suddenly, you know? So maybe they are God.
No, I like that idea of how weird to trust someone that isn't you to heal you. I like that thought, Sarah. It's true.
Yeah, and we're going to talk, I have some slides, we're going to talk about that too, because that is, sometimes we can't heal ourselves, you know, and sometimes
No,
we do need.
We need help.
And that's what it gets to. Whenever you can't do it yourself, you have to ask for help. And whether you're praying to God or you're like relying on science, I feel like if that article was written in the 60s, I mean, possibly before, we were just going on a hope and a prayer. And then science became, medicine became more. And so then we put all of our eggs in that basket. And now we're realizing the faults of that. So how do we balance it back out, you know?
Yeah, because the first line being, I will respect the hard-won scientific gains of those physicians in whose steps I walk. I think, you know, compared to putting, you know, swearing by the gods and goddesses, you know, the physicians who came before us become those gods and goddesses, and like the scientific gains of what we can prove. Yeah, it's just really interesting.
Or maybe we haven't developed the tool that helps us measure what we're gaining, you know. So it's our limit. We're limited in our facts by our ability to measure data.
And in subjective data is really important, especially when you're the one sick, like to be like, okay, this is changing in my body, this is healing, I'm feeling better over this time. And that goes back to the awareness, your embodied awareness of like, oh, I do feel better today than I did last week. And, you know, yeah, constantly coming back to how you feel and your own healing journey. Cool. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So, homeostasis. This is, we are constantly taking and utilizing and releasing energy. So, Yeah, in reality, that means you have every present opportunity. With every present moment, you have the opportunity to tune into this, because this is constantly changing. So the homeostasis is a state of steady internal physical and chemical conditions maintained by living systems. So again, this is the symphony that's always happening within us. This is the condition of optimal functioning for the organism and includes many variables such as body temperature, which is the hot and cold, and fluid balance, which is damp and dry. So another balances that are always changing within us. Being kept within certain preset limits, homeostatic range. Other variables include the pH of extracellular fluid, the concentrations of sodium, blah, 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 which we'll talk about some of that next week as well, or next class. And these need to be regulated despite changes in the environment. So the things that we were saying, the things around you that you take in, even if you don't want to, despite whatever happens, your body's always trying to regulate. So even if you come across something that is really bad for you, like I walked, like I was on the street and I turned one time and like this truck that I didn't see like blew exhaust in my face, and it was horrible. In that moment, I felt like I was in such danger, but because I just breathed in so much. But then I was like, I knew how to I take care of myself after that. I didn't just like live in fear, like, oh no, I breathed this in and I really am going to be unhealthy because of that thing. And I've known people like that. And I'm like, I think when you hold on to it, that's different than holding on to what you can do to change, maybe something bad that did happen to you. Not that exhaust is the worst thing that can happen. But so despite changes in the environment or your diet or your level of activity, I think this is why chronic disease is far more prevalent than infectious disease in the past century, because well, diet is a huge part of it. And so when you go 50 years without proper nutrition, things are going to start to break down. And level of activity and moving, our bodies are made to move, So each of these variables is controlled by one or more regulators or homeostatic mechanisms, which together maintain life. So again, homeostasis within the body, and then homeostasis without of the body, which is still an enclosed ecosystem, because our earth is enclosed and we live in this perfect little space in between, like the core of our earth and then the deep dark of space, and this little atmosphere is where we live, right there in the middle. So I like to think of that as a to finish the process of becoming balanced means we stop fluctuating. And when we stop fluctuating, we stop moving. And when we stop moving, we die. So I think that this is one, at least I mentioned this because I remember talking about this a lot with Kayla, is that this idea of homeostasis or becoming balanced is, to me, I really want this, like, I want to become balanced or become even, and I don't think that's not how nutrition works, and that's not how metabolism works, and I don't think we're meant to find perfect balance in our bodies. So keep that in mind, because I think sometimes when we see something, oh, this really hurts, so I need to balance this out here, or this is really swollen, so I need to do this to fix it. Sometimes there's a reason things kind of get off kilter, but coming back into, like, being aware of that and bringing it back into the movement of healing instead of just focusing so much on perfecting it. It's more about nutrition. I think bad food is the same way. Like, oh, you eat one thing that is bad and then you're suddenly ruined. And it's like, no, actually, you keep going. Your body keeps going, and you just focus on different things moving forward.
It's okay to seek homeostasis and not obtain it.
Yeah.
It's like seeking enlightenment, but then if we become enlightened, we disappear. It's the same thing. If we become homeostatic, then there's nothing for the body to work on, so it quits working.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a well, I was gonna say I'm a little bit of a Taoist, but I might be a Taoist. I'm not sure. But it's like the Tao. Once you think you can know it, if you think you can put the Tao into words, then it's not the Tao.
It's not the Tao, that's right.
It's not it.
We can only discuss of the Tao. We cannot.
Right. You can't find it. You can't describe it. So, and I think I've really bled, I'm sure you can tell, like this scientific way of looking at nutrition and medicine in with this idea of like, we just need to look at things a little bit differently as a whole. Individually, I think it's good to blur the lines, and that's really what this is all about. We're blurring the lines and going, well, how do we really want to look at healing ourselves? Because turns out there's a lot of ways to look at healing. So medicament, has anyone heard this word before? Medicament. It's comes from medicine, but it's a word. Medicamentation is the act of administering medicines, medications, and remedial treatment. So medicaments are substances used for medical treatments. These are our herbs. Can also be food. This can be any substance used for medical treatment, and a medical treatment is to manage and care to combat disease or disorder or imbalance. And so when it comes to food, well, maybe we'll talk about that later. So imbalance is the big thing. I guess when it comes to food, like if you've eaten a lot of meat and you're feeling really heavy, well, the next day maybe I need something else to lighten me up. Or if you have been eating a lot of airy foods, well, maybe you need something a little more earthy to, always working in that balance. So medicine comes from the Latin word medicor, meteor. I hope I'm saying that right. Verbs that mean to heal or cure. And I'm kind of obsessed with this concept here because I'm not, as an herbalist, I'm not allowed to use the word medicine, especially not publicly. And I reject that idea because I don't think anyone owns medicine and owns the concept of curing. But we can't say it cures, and technically I don't even know if anyone should say it cures. But healing is an art, like the Hippocratic Oath said, as well as a science. And healing can be a lot of things. Heal means to make free from injury or disease, to make sound or whole. Couple ways of looking at healing is the process where cells in the body regenerate and repair themselves. Also, healing is the process of dealing with a problem or problems. So to bring the pieces back into a whole. Like I was saying earlier, there can be some really centralized parts of the body that go wrong. Maybe it's only the foot. Maybe it's only the pelvic region. Maybe it's only the brain. But when they are made sound, they become more of a whole. They become more attuned with the whole because the whole is no longer worried about that piece. Does that make sense? So what is medicine? If medicine, the substance of the medicament, can heal or make whole, then we have some serious questions to ask. What is worth curing? How do we know we're not whole? When is healing required? What do cravings satisfy? Because that kind of feels sometimes like, oh, I can't live without this thing. And then once you have it, you feel whole or satiated in some way. And so how do you balance that? And how do you know when you are healed, and can you continuously work towards wholeness? And we've already kind of talked about this, but yes, I mean, I think that's the answer. So all of these are really big questions that, we can just mull over for a long time. So we use food as medicine. So what else do we use as medicine? So we're going to go back and forth and again just blur the lines between food and medicine and how we see them. So food is medicine. When you use food as medicine, you use it as a tool for healing. We are tool users. That's the reason we have opposable thumbs. We learned how to use things to heal ourselves. And so food, if you see food as medicine, as a tool, you have to separate it into subjective versus objective. So the subjective can be the thing that's really satisfying my subjective need. But objectively, body as object, you know, maybe that craving isn't good for my body, but maybe it's good for me. Does that make sense, Kayla? Like you were saying, we are more than, we transcend our pieces. In a way, we are more than our bodies as well. Our bodies are an object physically, but we are more than that too. So when we have a subjective need, but we're meeting it on an objective level, we have to look at both. And food is that way because food is transcendent a little bit. Like it goes, it satisfies us even when it might not satisfy our body. So subjective is based on, is based on or influenced by personal feelings, tastes, or opinions. So sensory input from flavors is a huge thing that I want to talk about today too, because again, that's that craving. It's like, oh, I really want something salty, but maybe you really want something salty because there's an imbalance and the opposite of what you actually need is something salty. And so that's when objective perspective comes in handy because, oh,
Sarah,
Masha's here.
Sarah, I want to back up and play devil's advocate just a
Yay!
little.
Okay, good.
I'd like to have a little bit of discussion, if we can, on if is illness actually bad?
No, and that's
Does illness need to be healed?
right.
Or
Are you
is it
asking
our
me?
discomfort that needs to be healed?
Well, I think the imbalance happens for a reason, like edema, or like if there's buildup of fluid in the body. People just want a diuretic to get rid of that fluid. Well, then what if that fluid was a buffer for something that was actually something deeper that was going wrong, and now you've gotten rid of your symptom. But so I guess that using that example, I think that that's not necessarily bad because it shows us something else. And so if your discomfort is healed, you can deal with the root issue with less pain.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that's part of a both and kind of way of thinking, is I am both healthy and diseased. You know, I think Rebecca was going to try to join us today, but she's not able to. They're moving forward with their move to an easier household for them, which is a great thing. But I look at Rodney right now. He is both healthy and diseased. Part of his body is diseased, but another part of his body is extremely healthy and vital. And so could I say that he is sick in the definitive statement? I don't think so. I think I have to see him in his multiplicities, like he's holographic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, to not use Rod as an example, I remember when I was in dietetics school that there was this, we were talking about this case where a little boy had a certain type of cancer, and what made him happy was pizza and ice cream. And so he was allowed to have as much pizza and ice cream as he wanted. And in dietetics, we were talking about this because it was like, well, what is the sugar? Like, what is all that doing to the state, to the objective state? and probably not good things, you know, because cancer likes sugar, and, you know, and we were talking about like the fasted state and how its effects on cancer at the time. So it's like objectively has a very different impact than subjectively, because what if that's exactly what he needed? I don't know. Because we are more than just, parts of us can be sick and parts of us can be healthy. That's why I like this contrast, because I think there's clarity through contrast for me, in that, like, when you can look at it different, and if so, that's why I split it apart, is because you can see that how much it bleeds together as well. Yeah, so that's why objective judgments about the individual are dangerous, just like subjective judgments about the state of the person is dangerous.
Yeah, if I could use an example real quick too, like my dad, I've talked about before, my dad has like really severe kidney failure. And so he's had that now for like, I don't know, 3 years. And so it affects so much more of his body than one would think. Like, he's really not even the same person. But so he has like a really specific diet that he has to be on, because they're, you know, anything that processes through his kidneys, he can't eat. And so he was on a really specific diet, and he got to where he had lost, you know, he got to where he was like 95 pounds, and he's taller than I am, not a whole lot taller, but so he got to be about my weight, and is, you know, almost 6 inches taller than me, and a man. And so when he went in for his checkup at one point, they said, you are holding too much to this. They're like, you're getting depressed because you can't eat anything that you like. And he was just kind of like moping around because he was just feeding that object. He wasn't really feeding himself as a spiritual being or as a feeling being. It was just kind of broken down to that. And so they encouraged him to kind of loosen his diet a little bit and expand into some of the foods that he like wasn't supposed to eat. And when he did that, he was able to gain weight, and he was able to, you know, not necessarily function in a lot of ways better, but he was at least able to be comforted, whereas before he was just denying himself any of those like comforts that he would have derived from his diet. So I thought that was kind of cool.
It is, yeah. And I think that diet can be really restrictive for a while, and that's the pattern over time, is like, well, that can change really, really quickly sometimes too. And that we feed ourselves on so many different levels. So what is feeding me versus what is feeding the body? And this isn't even talking, I put disease state, but it's the state, it's the body itself. But when we're talking about something that's an imbalance, or something that's off, or something that's going wrong or backwards, yeah. Anything else before we move on? Okay. So we use medicine as food, so what else do we use as food? This is the question. So a bunch of non-food stuff, right? Preservatives aren't food, but they're in a lot of food that we eat. Food product, like things that aren't actually food, but they actually say food product on them. Artificial stuff, naturally sourced, refined, fillers. There's a lot of fillers in our food. But like we were just saying, we are nourished by water, sunshine, nature connection, movement, being around each other. We're nourished by lots of things. So that have nothing to do with food, that we still think of as food, that we still think of as nourishment. So again, subjective medicine versus objective medicine. When we see the body as us, body as object, or us as body. It's a really nuanced difference, but yeah, it's all part of choosing what we need at the time, because it can change over time as well. So what is healthy food? So we want to make the right choices when it comes to food, and what does it mean to have healthy food? Macros and micros, you need those. We're going to talk about those next class, but those are your fats, proteins, carbs, vitamins, minerals, and that's kind of a foundational level of what you need day to day. Organic, always go organic when possible, but that's not always possible. So like Kayla says too, I agree that if you can't do everything organic, at least animal products do organic. And then whole, as close to its whole form as possible. So processed can mean a lot of things, but I think in general, as close to the whole fruit, whole vegetable, whole cut of meat, whole cut, or anything, so it's recognizable. And then once you go more whole food, you kind of get away from those fillers anyway, which I think is a lot of what bogs down metabolism, is things that your body doesn't necessarily know how to digest super, super well. And then vitality, I think there's the vitality of peppers at a warehouse versus the vitality of peppers at the farmer's market or in your backyard. I think there's a difference there. I don't know what science has to say about this. Well, actually, 5 years ago in college, they told me there's absolutely no difference between an organic cookie and a not organic cookie. And so that's that take. But I think there is, and I think there's, and I think that's why you're all in this class, right? Is that the medicine that you make has a different potency than the medicine that you buy from someone else, or that was made in a factory with metal and hasn't been touched by a human being maybe ever. And there's something about that hands-on, clean, prepared, well process of food that really adds a level of nourishment, I think, to oh my gosh, look at all the babies. Hi, children. Sorry, I got distracted. Bring me all the cats and dogs too. That's the only way I can see them is on screen. So part of the healthy aspect is like, did the life that died for this meal mean something? Whether it's a plant or an animal. I think there was Christina, did you want to say something? I saw you unmuted.
Oh, I was going to mention that the Rodell Institute is doing a long-term study right now on the difference between the health of like organic foods versus inorganic. And so it's really interesting. And so far there's been one study, not by them, that was a long-term study that was done where they found some difference in nutrition from food from like the 1950s versus produce now. But that could also have to do with like varieties, like, that we're eating that have, like new varieties of things, and also possibly like the soil health.
Yeah, I've heard the soil health.
Yeah, there's still like so much research that needs to be done, but I think it's interesting that they, like when people say, like that they taught that there wasn't a difference when we actually didn't even know. It hadn't really been looked at.
Well, I remember everyone in the class, after my professor said that, we all looked at each other like, there's no way. There's no way that's true. There has to be some difference.
Yeah, totally.
And is it nourishing me the best way that it could? And so the difference in and we're going to talk about that with like preparation in a little bit. But for the most part, food is eaten in food-like quantities, and medicine in medicine-like quantities. And since we've blurred the lines on like food and medicine, whatever that is, maybe you need a little bit of turmeric, or maybe you need a lot of turmeric. Maybe you need a little bit of ginger just to keep your blood kind of moving throughout the day, but maybe you need a lot of ginger because there's something going on in your lungs, and you know that we're just thinking about ingredients like ingredients, and or thinking about food like ingredients and medicine like ingredients, and knowing how to prepare it in critical thinking ways, instead of just like, oh, I have this, that means I need this, or this is wrong, that means I need to do this. Or I think there's a lot of binaries in modern medicine that just don't need to be there at all. The medicine is in the dose, right, Kayla? The medicine is in the dose. So that's the difference between food and medicine, is the dose. And so nutritive herbs, I'm sure you all know about, are just heavy in vitamins and minerals. So these are things that we drink just for the nutrition. Maybe not just for the nutrition, but mainly for the nutrition, and that they are really nourishing to our bodies, really toning to our bodies. So there's herbalish, foodish. I love this new saying. So integrating roots into your diet. Burdock root, fresh burdock root is really tasty. Horseradish root, celery root, turmeric root, ginger root. Those are some ways to get more deep nutrition into your diet, into your food. Burdock root decoction. Using the decoction to sip, because it's lovely, but also putting it in, using it to make rice. I've done that. I'm making rice, burdock rice, soup, broths. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Roommates. Scraps from cooking, veggie scraps, herb scraps. Like if you don't use the bottoms of some herbs, like the stalks or stems or whatever. Bones from processing meat. Keep saving all that, putting it in a crock pot for a day or two, and having broth on hand. That's a really big way of getting more collagen. That's an option. Instead of doing collagen, is doing bone broth. Chilled sipping tea, an herbal. So the nutritive teas that you can make like in a half gallon at a time, and just sip those throughout the day, and point it in the direction of desired constitutional state. So if you're a bit of a dry person, some oats are more moistening than like nettles are. So maybe your sipping tea can be can provide more dampness if you're naturally more dry. So again, that balance of the different tissue states. We're choosing healthy things, but we also want to be more nuanced in our direction with it, because if you want to make a soup for dinner, but maybe there's a little bit of some sniffles, you add some herbs that maybe you're gonna be more supportive of that than the last soup you made or something. So
can I say something?
Yeah.
So with like educating other mothers, whenever they start first foods for their kids, they worry about, a lot of people run to like processed, already made foods. But what I tell them is like, you can still feed your kids, say like, fun foods or like chicken nuggets or whatever. But it's just what you can add, like, table scraps or like vegetable scraps or stock, and cooking it in a different way and still giving them like that fun, exciting finger food. Like boiled carrots. You don't have to boil carrots in water. You can simmer them in, bone broth, and then it adds more nutrients. And people find it real like mind blowing when I'm like, just add a little bit more. Or even like nutritional yeast. We always throw nutritional yeast into our rice. And we don't really do dairy, but I incorporate, butter into like everything my kids eat. And it makes a huge difference. Just like tiny ingredients like that can make a huge difference in the nutritional qualities, or like the nutrition density in the food that they're eating. But it doesn't have to be like intimidating for first time moms, or like, you know, kid food that's still fun and imaginative.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's one of my favorite cookbooks is a cookbook about how to hide vegetables in recipes for kids who don't want to eat vegetables. And it's so fun.
It's so fun. It is fun because that made me think. I had my like nieces and nephews over once, and they wanted to have, I forgot what I made, but I think it was some kind of meatloaf or something that they asked for, and they didn't know that it was like 90% vegetables until they were like, man, that was good. I was like, yeah, you just think like mushrooms and carrots. They didn't know. So I like the what was it, foodish and herbalish?
Yeah, herbalish.
I've never heard that term.
Oh, it's because I made it up. I mean, I think I did anyway. But that's really, I think, what it's about. Optimum nutrition is about is when you think of food as medicine, you really I think there's options to just increase your medicinal herbs. And I think culinary herbalism, that's what it's all about well, actually, that's what the next slide is about.
The cookbook you were talking about is Deceptively Delicious.
Yes, I love that one.
I love that cookbook too.
Yeah, because she like purees beans and squash into lasagna, and it's just hidden.
You have to do that for some adults too.
Yeah, it's true. Herbal infusions, herbalish foodish. That is exactly what herbal infusions are. Herbalish foodish. And because you are kind of hungry, but you don't really want to eat, but you think you're just kind of have the munchies because maybe you're a little low on minerals. And you think, oh, I could definitely eat something. But instead you have a nettle infusion and you feel really satiated, but also really full. It's because it's provided you a lot of nutrients that maybe the craving went away because your body's been given what it actually needs, not what it actually, no, you think you want. I mean, that's part of knowing what you want / need / having the awareness and choices. And choices, that's really what it's about, educating yourself in the choices for optimum nutrition so that you always have these different tools at your disposal. Bitter abundance, bitter herbs, bitter foods, the more you can do, I think the better. I think that will help nutrient assimilation, which we'll talk about, because most people have bitter deficiency syndrome. I heard Jim McDonald mention that, but I don't know if it clicked so well because I've heard it before, but I think in general we're lacking in bitter flavors in our diet, and just bitterness in general. We have a hard time accepting like the bitter truth about things. I think there's some stuff there with that. And then culinary herbs, I say fresh culinary herbs if possible, because I mean, personally, they've changed my life. I think that once I started growing fresh culinary herbs, it's like everything changed cooking wise, because most culinary spices are antimicrobial. If volatile oils are present, they're also toning. And so that's the other thing. That's why I said fresh, because dried spices are wonderful. I use them every day. But if it's been on a grocery store shelf for like a year, and then maybe in a box for like months before that, and now it's been 3 years in your spice cabinet, it might not have those properties anymore. It might still have the flavor, totally fine. But that's the thing about preparation too, is that you want to make sure that what you're looking for in the plant, that the plant itself actually has it. Violets are an example of that. Like violets can be demulcent, like a little bit slimy, but if it's later in the season and you harvest your violet leaves and they're more dry, they're not as demulcent. So you can't, even if a book says they're demulcent and you're sipping violet tea and you're like, oh, this is demulcent. Well, maybe not, you know? maybe look at the plant itself and decide for yourself. So here's a list of warming aromatics and cooling aromatics. And aromatics are what make culinary herbs culinary herbs because they have a spice, they have flavor, and they're all pretty. Toning is a weird, vague word for herbs, but I think toning is about kind of stimulating, like lightly stimulating the tissues. And if they're going through your GI, and then it's especially warming it has a diffusive property, but to slowly stimulate all those tissues means they're kind of getting like activated and worked out. Isn't really they're not getting a workout, but maybe that's a good way of thinking of it, is that your tissues will kind of get invigorated and kind of tone up just by use, just by getting stimulation. Action on this tissues. I'm just looking at my notes. I think action on the tissues, whether to stimulate or sedate, is what make volatile oil so powerful. And it literally works out our senses. So our senses being to taste, smell, touch. I think that is a huge part of holistic nutrition, is utilizing your senses externally with the plants, with the food, with the water, being able to look at it and decide what it is and how, and the same with our bodies, deciding what do I need and how is this thing going to match that, and using our senses, because that's something that the less time we spend in nature, the more we lose our physical senses, because people forget that, like, what pine trees actually smell like. People forget what grass actually feels like under their feet. You know, we have senses to experience life and to differentiate flavors and textures. And if those things aren't being exercised or toned, then, you know, you lose it. So this top wheel here is the Taste of Herbs flavor wheel. They're salty, sour, pungent, sweet, and bitter. The Taste of Herbs, they have a lot of great resources online, but this is eerily similar to these two flavor wheels at the bottom, which are coffee flavor wheels. So fruity, floral, earthy, spicy. This is just to illustrate the nuance of flavor that it's like the sommeliers, the wine tasters, they have really specific, and like coffee tasters here too, they have a really specific palate, because it's been trained and because there are different levels of tone and flavor there. And my question, so this wheel on the bottom is also an emotion wheel. And I love putting all the colors together like this because, again, I think there is intense nuance to our emotions and how we perceive flavors. And to experience flavors in these unique little ways give us more freedom to prepare foods and medicines for ourselves in a more specific way. If you can pick up on what your body needs, what more than your body needs, what you need. And this chart up at the top left here is an example of emotional components. And the first component starts as subjective feeling. No one else except you can experience your emotional state like you. And I think that's kind of the thing about flavors too, is, I mean, have you ever like held up something and one person is like, that's green, and someone else is like, no, it's blue. And you fight over what color it is because you have two different perspectives on the same color. I think flavors are kind of the same way, is that like, well, this is really satisfying to me, and someone else just it isn't working. So anyone have any thoughts on this before I just keep rambling and get more confused?
Where did you get that bottom chart?
The internet.
Where's it from?
This one is from.
I want to look at it bigger sometime.
Yeah, I'll put it. I can when I send Kayla the email with all these, I can add that in there.
Okay, cool.
The
Thank you.
source, because I think it's positivepsychology.com. Yeah, /emotion wheel.
Okay.
So emotions are complex because they are only ever subjective. Because how you feel is no one else can feel how you feel. But at the same time, emotions, I have one teacher that says emotions are actions in the body. We do emotions. We do emotion. And so in that way, your subjective experience highly influences the subjective experience of others, or the people around you at least. And so that's where it all kind of gets blurred together. That's why I like the specific nuance of these things, and I think that they're really interconnected. Your emotional range and your flavor range.
And then sometimes when we feel an emotion, it creates a hormone, and then that hormone gives us a physical response. Or then do we create the hormone which causes the emotion? Okay, so here I am again at both end. We live in a both end world.
Well, and that's why this is so complicated, because like the component, it starts out with subjective feeling, which is your subjective feeling, like happiness, sadness. And then it goes down to action tendency, which is your motivation, and so the urge in which how you want to respond to that. Then you have a meaning making phase where you appraise it, and then you have the motor activity, which causes a psychological thing that actually changes your physiology. And so what did come first, the chicken or the egg? I think it's a self-feeding cycle. Is I'm sad, so these hormones change. Well, then the hormones are there, and so then your state changes. Well, if you do emotion with your body, then everything else changes, and then what you want to balance that changes. And so I guess I don't want to say all this stuff just to say nothing, but I think there's great benefit in looking at it from a more holistic way, because once you have that awareness that wow, there's 1,000 reasons I could be feeling this way or wanting this thing, there's a lot more options on how to move forward from there. Yeah. Okay. Can we take a 3-minute break? I just have to go to the bathroom before we move on to the next slide, which is
We
what
usually
you
do about a 10-minute break.
That's fine.
Why don't we come back at 2:30? That'd be 9 minutes.
Okay.
That way everybody can get a snack.
Perfect. Okay, I'm recording again. So, screen 1, yeah. Okay. So we've talked about, so far, hopefully you have, sorry, I'm trying to get, I want to be able to see your guys' faces, and it keeps making itself so tiny that I can't see anything. Okay. So hopefully, so far we've kind of blurred the lines on what you are, what you eat, but you're also a lot more than that. And so we're going to get into absorption and assimilation now. But before we do that, does anyone have any insights or stories or questions on what we've covered so far? It's kind of been a lot. No. Okay, so you are what you absorb. Eating well doesn't mean absorbing well. How well you absorb your nutrients from the food you eat, I mean, are everything. So taking in nourishment. So we consume nutrients from our food. We also consume nutrients from our environment. For both of those things, that includes what you need and what you don't need. Nutrients that you don't need are excreted as surplus. That means that you've consumed more than your body can utilize at the time, so it just gets rid of it, or toxins. And up until, I guess, like the 70s or 60s, toxins were considered your metabolic byproducts of your normal metabolism. So now there's all kinds of things in the environment that your body was working hard to get rid of too. And so you basically, you want to be as easy on that as possible, like not give your body extra things that it doesn't want to utilize. So what blocks assimilation? Stress, cortisol, which means that if you aren't having your needs met, this here at the bottom is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It starts with psychological needs, then your safety needs, like your personal security, health, love and belonging, then esteem, before you can get to self-actualization. But if you're not having your psychological needs met or your safety needs met, that has a direct response to your stress, and that is one thing that can block assimilation. It's like probably the number one thing that blocks most people's assimilation now, which leads to muscular tension, which I think when it comes to the cells in your muscles, you are going to have a harder time functioning and utilizing their nutrients because they're tense and they're tight. Laxity also, so tension and laxity, both things can cause problems. Laxity in your gut tissues, that's related to leaky gut, if you've heard of leaky gut. But it's kind of like if the tissues, this is the best way I know how to explain it. If the tissues are like this, they're woven on top of each other, and the tissues are lax, that means they're just gonna start to like make their own little shape, and then they have all these holes, some are bigger, some are smaller, for pathogens to get through. And then that's gonna have a problem with absorbing your nutrients as well, because if the nutrients are in your gut, they're going through your GI tract, they could leak into the tissues around them, and that's like autoimmune, your immune system reacting to things that aren't necessarily in your gut. That's related to that as well. Malnutrition, not having the nutrients can keep you from absorbing the nutrients. What a thing. And that makes it really hard to get your nutrients too. So, and that's vitamin and mineral deficiency, not having the tissues in a state where they're healthy enough to actually metabolize the nutrients. And preparation, how you prepare your food. If you need, if you are a little malnourished or you have a mineral deficiency, raw nutrients might be a little hard, especially if you have laxity in the gut. Raw vegetables might be a little hard to digest, which means that your body is going to treat a lot of the nutrients in there like surplus, and it's going to release them before it utilizes them because it doesn't know what to do with it, because your metabolic processes are not functioning to the best of their capacity. So this is kind of, I don't think I should have put this slide right here, but before, this is one when it comes back to absorption and what you take in. So this is a really, it's more than just nutrient absorption here, but thinking of absorption in you are more than just your body, right? Ground and sky helps this balance come, but how we hold our bodies can determine what we absorb. That determines what we take in and absorb. So taking in energy from the earth, taking in energy from the sky helps balance our bodies here in our atmosphere. So this is the space in between, and this is what is going to decide how you absorb, because it's taking in the nutrients and then absorbing them properly. There's nothing really clear about that. And so, yeah, I think this is. Well, in this, so the movement of the spine, the one that's circled here, is being able to pull your spine open and creating a body where there's the least amount of pressure and stress and tension in our body is also going to help the flow. And that's another thing that's going to help us utilize the nutrients that we take in. So food preparation, again, if you maybe you're lacking in minerals and your body is getting rid of excess minerals because your tissues aren't prepared to absorb it, maybe you need to prepare your food differently. So that means cooking it a little more for a while to make sure that your body can digest it easily enough, because if your tissues are lax or tense and they aren't, and then you're lacking in the enzymes, maybe you're not gonna, it's gonna be harder to digest your food. And if it's already and if you're already having a hard time doing that, you want to make it as easy as possible to digest and get everything out of the food that you're taking in. So that could be cooking it more. That could be, we're going to talk about fermentation at our third class, and that's one that fermenting your food pre-digests it a little bit, and then there's more enzymes and bioavailable minerals that actually helps you prepare or assimilate the nutrients at that point too. Bitter flavors are another thing that they increase the salivary amylase, the first enzyme that comes in contact with your food in your mouth. That's going to increase your saliva and your enzymes to start digestion in the first place that it starts, which is in your mouth. Hydrochloric acid in your stomach, liver activity goes up, bile goes up, and that's going to help you digest the food and absorb it as well. Then activator herbs like black pepper, if you have a formula that you think should be working, but it's not necessarily doing what you are hoping or wanting it to do, or you think it should do, especially in that person's body, just a little bit of black pepper can sometimes activate, and it's kind of like a poking, like poke root, it kind of just pokes at it and agitates it too. And I think movement by agitation, like the toning, the aromatic toning thing, that has to do with kind of activating the tissues to help them if they're needing some of that too. Then alternative herbs. Alternative is another vague herbal term that it's like it helps the body's let's see, the actual definition was they alter the body's processes of metabolism so that the tissues can best deal with the range of functions from nutrition to elimination. So that's super vague. And again, like the magic of herbs, I don't know. I think if we were to do more scientific research, we would probably find the ways in which it does this, but there isn't. Kayla?
Yeah, the eclectics called the alternative herbs blood cleansers.
Mm-hmm.
So we think of the processes of elimination that are cleansing to the blood. So liver process, colon process, and kidney process, and then finally skin.
In your lungs too, I think.
Oh yeah, lungs.
Or anything that helps the elimination processes. And anything that your blood touches. It's everything. And so dandelion is a good example. Burdock, yellow dock. This is yellow dock, curly dock. And this is burdock. Cleavers, nettle, red clover. And even though they can be specific for, like cleavers, I think is specific for lymphatic. Nettle, I think of being more as like a urinary. Dandelion, more of liver, but still, like those processes of assimilating nutrients can be assisted with herbs. And again, that's why herbs are food, because if things that assist your nutrition are already part of your diet, then you don't have to necessarily worry that you're not getting the nutrition from your food, because herbs are here to support that. And the other reason that you might not be assimilating some nutrients is because you lack the proper moisture. And water is a huge part of moisture, but also fat and oils are another reason, or another level of moisture that we have, like the oils on our skin, the oils in our hair. Water and oil don't mix, and I think that's why we need both. And that's why we have both. And dietary fat and oils help assimilate fat-soluble nutrients. That's your vitamin D, your vitamin K, your vitamin A. And if you have no fat in your diet, also like your joints and the things that they're supposed to be cushion in your body will start to rub together. Your cartilage. Or you're not drinking enough water. So you also need water to metabolize your water-soluble vitamins, the same way you need fat for your fat-soluble vitamins. So making sure you have enough water intake to actually get your nutrients to where they want to go in the body, and the fat to carry your fat-soluble vitamins there too. So this is also bringing into awareness, again, the balance between dry and damp conditions. If you are dry, it could be because you have too much water and not enough fat. And so you could be taking in a lot of water and be dehydrating yourself because you're lacking the fat and oil to hold on to that moisture. So too much water, and then too much oil too. If you're not having enough water, because you're saturated in fats and oils, you might not be thirsty. You might not actually get thirsty because you're saturated with enough moisture in oil or fat that it's a clinging to the dampness. Oil is more of a clinging nature than water. Water kind of rushes through, but oil clings on. So that, in the imbalance of damp and dry, it could be sluggishness. Or I was gonna say, or kapha. I'm kind of I'm a kapha. If we talked about the doshas at all in class yet? I mean, but if you know about the doshas, kapha is kind of that, like, holds on to the oily, and I can kind of relate to that one at least. Being dehydrated by too much water is not one I'm familiar with.
We haven't talked about them at length, Sarah, but I think some folks here are versed in the doshas just a bit. So if you have things to say about them, I think some people will pick up from that.
Okay, I guess I don't have too much to say, but Vata's airy. It can burn off the water. I think there's some steam involved with, or Pitta. Pitta's more, well, I guess in comparison to this, I don't guess I have too much to say, but Pitta is fiery, lots of heat, so water might quench that. Kapha maybe needs more water to push the oil through. I don't know. But freshwater soluble vitamins, I mean whole food sources of water soluble vitamins. Needing the water for vitamins in general, most are water soluble, and having vitamins in, I think that's why vitamins make your urine like really bright colors, is because they're just, that's where they're excreted through. And just because like a vitamin makes your pee bright orange doesn't mean it's like working. It means you're peeing it out. Which still is like a wash of nutrients through your body. So again, if that's a part of your balance, and then the symphony of nutrition can take you wherever you want to go. And you can balance with your moisture. This is everything. Your embodiment should change via in the context that it's in. So we were talking about, you are an enclosed ecosystem within an enclosed ecosystem. And seasons alone, I mean, we have 4 seasons, but there's a lot of in between situations that you might need more fats and oils, or you might need more water, or anything in between. So I'm getting dry. Oops. So you are what you do not excrete. Waste removal and elimination as metabolic lifesavers. So you would not survive if you never released things. Does anyone know Kayla's #1 house rule?
#1 what rule?
Her #1 housekeeping rule.
They don't meet here, Sarah. They don't meet here.
Ugh.
We meet at Leah Center, so
I know, but it could be that you talk about it enough. I figured someone might know. So Kayla's.
I have so many. I'm afraid I don't know what my #1 is.
Well, the one that I'm thinking of is to always take out the trash.
That's right.
Every week. Yes, every week you have to take out the trash. Do you want to talk about why that is?
Because you don't want to live with your clutter. You have to get rid of the trash. You have to get rid of that is gone and over with, and dump it so that you can be, I hate to use the word clean because I don't really believe in cleansing, but you have to be somewhat clean inside to take in the next load.
Well, what do you know? That's nutrition, ladies and gentlemen. So the surplus in our body, the surplus that's created, has to be excreted. So I highlighted or, surplus or toxins. What you release isn't always toxic. Sometimes what you release is just extra. And that can be metabolic waste, again, gases, liquids, solids, or heat. We are warm beings, and to release heat, sometimes bowel movements, they release heat. I think that's one of the reasons we feel so good afterward, is like there's a balancing of not only matters, or the state of the matter, but also the temperature too. So non-metabolic waste, things that are unusable by the body, taken in excess of the needs and storage of the body, or passed through the body without being metabolized. Unusable by the body, that I think of that as fiber. It's not really being metabolized, and your body isn't using it as a nutrient. The purpose of fiber is to pass through you and to pull things out of the body with the fiber. That's why they say, like, on all the boxes of oats, that they'll lower your cholesterol, because they will. I mean, fiber pulls excess cholesterol out of the body. But again, keeping that in check. And then uric acid excreted in the urine, water vapor through the lungs. That's how, again, liquid, gas, solid, metabolic waste. Environmental factors as toxins. So we not only get rid of things that are extra in from our nutrition, but we get rid of things that don't need to be there at all, like heavy metals, glyphosate, pesticides, car exhaust, smog, noise pollution, light pollution, and negative media. I added on there because I think, well, negative media, I just added that at the end because I think that adds to stress, and that adds to the way in which you see the world. And again, going back to that ground and sky, like staying open, that shuts that. And if you're collapsed here and your heart's closed, your throat's closed, your spine's compacted, your womb's crushed, I think that it's harder to, well, A, take in, and it's harder to release too, because you're already in a tense state that you can't let things go very well. And so sometimes these environmental things that we take in are harder to let go of because there's just so much. But they can be kept in balance using your sensory perception. There's this thing called, I think it's called perspectival knowing. That's the knowledge in which you gain by being. It's your perspective. I think there's something to, I don't know why I thought of that just now, but I think that goes down to the pick your poison. That's where I was going with that, is because like there might be all these environmental factors that you want to get rid of, but your body's also already getting rid of things that don't belong there. Like your body is designed to get rid of heavy metals if there's too much of it. If you breathe in a mouthful of car exhaust, like your body can get rid of it, but that's also dependent on the state of your health before that thing enters. So the pathogen, I mean, going back to the disease state, the pathogen is just a fraction of the body, the disease state, because the pathogen might have caused a reaction, a chain reaction of things to happen within your body, the ecosystem in which it's now like causing an abundance of issues or the disease or whatever. But your reaction to that isn't because of the pathogen alone, it's because of the state in which you were before it came to you. So same with getting rid of environmental factors or metabolic waste, how you balance all these things, how you removed all these things, they're highly interconnected. So being able to have good excretion methods is important always, not only when, you know, I mean, I used to work with some people who would like eat something really bad and then like do all these herbal things afterward. When I was in dietetics, we would all get drunk on Thursdays, and then Fridays we would eat things to balance out our like blood, you know. And it's like that there's purpose in that, knowing how to, like I said earlier, knowing how to take care of yourself when something happens is really important, but also keeping your body regulated with excretion on a regular basis will make sure that when things do come along that you don't have control of, that you're already releasing. So bowel health, let's talk about that. There's a huge this is a huge part of getting rid of things that don't belong in your body. So proper bowel movements are a tremendous sign for excretion health. Here are some questions to ask to determine the health of your bowel movements. So this is different for everyone. How many bowel movements do you have per day, the time of day, consistency in color, pain and discomfort level. There really shouldn't be any pain. And I guess there could be. Bowel pain is really specific, and if it moves, if you're having like lower gut pain and it moves, that's probably bowel pain. It's unless, yeah, it's I was gonna say, it's like pancreatitis. It would stay in one place, like your pancreas won't move around your bowels. But the food going through your bowels could cause pain, but usually, yeah, if there's tremendous pain, that's an issue. And then are they complete? Irritable bowel syndrome, one of the top descriptors is that they don't feel complete. And there is your subjective experience with that, is yours. So knowing what's normal for you is just something to be aware of. And not everyone knows what's normal for them. So I want to bring that into your awareness. And then health factors that affect your bowel movements are hydration. If there is pain and they don't feel complete, the first thing I would say is hydration. Making sure that you're having enough fat and water moisture to pass appropriately. Soluble, insoluble fiber intake, making sure that you're having enough water if you're having fiber, to get the fiber out. Gut microbiome health, that's dysbiosis. If you have an imbalance of bacteria, there could be a reason for that. That could also cause some digestion issues. Mechanical digestion ease. This is, it's kind of common sense, but it's something I didn't think about for a long time. Like applesauce is easier to digest than popcorn. And if you have pain associated after you eat a snack and it's like always popcorn, maybe popcorn's a little hard for you to digest. And if not, then not. But I became aware of this because I have more sensitive digestion, and that's something I noticed, is that certain things are just harder to digest mechanically because it takes more mechanical peristalsis, it takes more enzymes, it takes more energy to break down something that is texturally sharp and jagged. And we eat a lot of things like that, crunchy, snacky things. By the time, depending on what it is, by the time it gets down to your colon, it should be completely broken down. But sometimes it's not. And so that's another sign of absorption and like needing to break it down more, assimilation issues. Parasites are a big deal. And probably more common than people realize. So that could definitely be, if there's parasites in the colon, it's going to be hard to really take in anything, and it's going to be hard to release anything. So that's another thing. And then stress and tension. Sometimes constipation is just related to stress. Sometimes there are gut issues that if you hold your tension down in your womb area, you're likely to have some like spasmy things down there anyway, and that's going to make digesting hard because there could be latent inflammation. There could be I think that's probably the most prevalent one on all this list. This is a picture of the Bristol stool chart, which I thought this was like the most appropriate poop picture because it was in pipes instead of being on a chart. So there's types 1 through 7, and if your hydration and your fiber intake, these are just things to be aware of and what's normal for you. And again, this, like we were saying earlier, with being aware of what you need and those balances and what you choose to eat and what you choose as medicine. If something is off in your own health, you have the tools to be like, oh, well, maybe I need a little bit more. Well, here, let's get into this. Herbal assistance. So these are all herbs that assist in elimination in various ways. If you're constipated, senna, boom, that should take care of it. But slippery almond marshmallow root, those are moisturizing ones. psyllium husk will add fiber. Aloe will add soothing nature if there's pain or heat. Coffee is a diuretic, but it also stimulates bile flow, which will just be a nice general cleanse. I think that's why like some people can't poop without coffee in the morning, and that's because it's great at that. You know, coffee enemas are extreme cases of elimination. I know Kayla's not super keen on coffee enemas, but my experience is that when you need one, they work. When you don't need one, they are terrible for you. And I've definitely done one when it was just like a heroic measure, and I think I just lost too much bacteria in my gut by doing it when I didn't need to, and so then my gut bacteria was off for a while, and it created a whole other set of issues. So they're not. So eliminating is also kind of excretion is a really important factor in health, and so, but I think personally, I think that it can become a bit obsessive with like, oh, I need to let go, I need to let go, I need to get rid of the impurities, the things that are in me that are wrong or dirty. So I can see why people can maybe focus on elimination as like the core thing about health. But again, it's not only what you eat or what you eliminate, but it's also, you know, what you hold on to, what you take in. So there's a whole dandelion leaf, artichoke leaf, rhubarb, burdock root, chamomile is a mild lymphatic, flaxseed add fiber, cloves for the parasites, ginger root, apple cider vinegar also is just a like I think it's an overall bowel mover. But then more herbalish, foodish on elimination. So the bitter herb salad, like we were saying, will stimulate things, get everything, help assimilating, and then apple cider vinegar dressing, that will overall just be highly nutritious, but also help you with assimilation and excretion at the same time. The parasite cleanse, I mentioned clove, also black walnut and wormwood would be another thing for parasites for excretion. Burdock decoction, slippery elm, and marshmallow in your oatmeal. If you have if you're already kind of dry, so oatmeal in general, if you're a damp person, might add. I mean, it might be really comforting to you, but it might not be the thing you need either. So again, awareness and choice with choosing your medicinals. But marshmallow and slippery elm are both great in oatmeal. Slippery elm more so because it's a bit sweeter, but marshmallow is just nice to have on hand anyway. Chia pudding, chia soaked in regular yogurt overnight, makes a nice like creamy, viscousy chia preparation that will add fiber and mucilaginous qualities, and so that also will help in elimination too, because it just makes everything slippery, and I mean gravity, it just slips out. And then flax. Oh, and if you're damp, but if you're also damp, maybe you want something to help pull the dampness out, something to help dry. And so flaxseed into like maybe some astringent berries like blueberry, raspberry. So again, pointing your nutrients towards like a constitutional state that you desire. Lymphatic elimination, if you want to focus more on lymphatics, cleavers infusion. Fresh cleavers dried a couple days, soaked in a jar is really simple. Most cleavers are gone by now, but like there's a simple spring infusion that you could do. Violet tea infusion, also a little demulcent, so if you're a little dry, it's another herbalish, foodish option for maybe if there's some lymphatic stuff you want to eliminate. calendula and chamomile as well. Chamomile is relaxing if there's any kind of pain or tension, because lymphatics, I think sometimes they're a bit clogged because if there's an immune thing. And so calendula will help push that, and chamomile will help relax. So they're a good combo. And then urinary elimination, fresh cranberries, because again, medicinal, the medicine's in the dose, and you could take a small dose of medicine for something that you wanted a urinary release to, but the urinary tract is the release of waters. It's everything flows through. So if you want, I don't know where I put on what side I put it on, but there's you want, if there's an infection in the urinary tract, for example, food and tea is going to provide more contact with the affected area than like one dose of something will. So fresh cranberries are going to have more of a flushing and toning effect than like a cranberry pill, because you're eating cranberries and they're coming in constant contact throughout the entire process of digestion, as opposed to just a pill of cranberry, which will break down in your stomach and get there. But I think you're going to have more of a more success. I think it'll just work better, as well as be assimilated better, and you get more nutrients from it anyway. Corn silk is another urinary elimination. Nettle infusion. I think nettle infusion is just highly nutritious anyway, but it does offer a lot of nutrients just across every tissue that it touches, from mouth to your urinary tract. So, and then I really liked this picture. This is the benefit of elimination, is because you have things that get clogged up and you don't feel good, but then once they're gone, you feel better. And that's the beauty of proper elimination. So there are some signs that your liver needs help, and your liver is another one. It's like the filter for your body. And so having a healthy liver, I think, is a huge part of having healthy eliminative practices. So this list is long, and it can, and obviously just one might not have anything to do with your liver, but I think seeing the list all together is, if you have all of these things, maybe your liver does need some support. And like we were saying with, like burdock is a perfect liver herb, but it also provides nutrition. It helps you assimilate your nutrients, and it helps you excrete. So that would be a good option. Discomfort after eating, especially like fatty foods, there can be some signs your liver needs help there. Unexplained weight gain or cellulite. I think the unexplained part is the most important thing there, because if you haven't changed anything, and like cellulite is just not a big deal, really normal, but it's from when fat is depositing too quickly under the skin. And so most of the time that's not an issue, but if it's unexplained and you haven't changed anything, that means something is off. That, again, that's that awareness of like being really, really intimate with your body and knowing the nuances of like, oh wow, this part of my body looks different or feels different. And not many people, know all the nitty gritties of like what this feels like and that feels like. Pain's a big one. Like I was saying earlier, pain might be a thing that comes and goes, but if it's debilitating, definitely talk to someone. Excessive perspiration and overheating while you're eating, particularly, because, or maybe after, difficulty concentrating, joint and muscle pain, fatigue, or brain fog. Those are all things that your body is just working really hard to do some elimination, and it just needs additional support. eliminate or die, literally. But eliminating metabolic waste, no more or less than needed. So that's the key thing, in that if your body is getting rid of things that it actually should be utilizing, then maintaining that proper balance in between is going to be what gets you optimum nutrition, which is what combining herbalism as using herbs as food and then combining herbalism into nutrition is what it's all about. Eliminating energetic buildup or energy vampires. Those are the people, like, you might be just one person, but you are more than your body. And so the people around you, in a way, affect your metabolism and affect the way you process as well. So having someone else, take from you what you need can also have something to do with how you absorb and assimilate nutrients. And then emotional abuse, eliminating that gives you the space to let go. Notice what you, and then remember, you are what you don't excrete. And I think this is a really, so you are what you don't excrete, meaning you choose to let go, meaning what you choose to let go of doesn't make you you. So excrement means letting go of something that has fulfilled its purpose. This, I just think, is a point I wanted to make, because I thought a lot about this. That, like, you get rid of things that you don't need so that you can keep your wholeness. And we were talking about wholeness earlier, as like, to heal, you need to make yourself whole, and you can't feel complete when there's extra stuff there. And so the things that you get rid of actually help complete you in that way. And that can be too an embodied tendency. So if you notice, like we were talking about elements, if you are more of an earthy person or more of a fiery person, what those qualities that you aren't also bring you balance with your embodiment. So if you want to be more fiery, more direct, then that's just more things to be aware of. I also put here, combine diuretic and antimicrobial herbs for urinary flush. We were saying that, I should have put that on the other slide though, but with the urinary elimination, like if there was an infection, you could combine things for urinary elimination with an antibiotic or antimicrobial, like garlic. Or uva ursi is another one that would be good for urinary elimination. So again, with keeping in balance what you hold on to and let go of, this is a chart that you'll get this chart on when I send you, or when somebody sends you all these slides. But when it comes to what you don't want to excrete, when it comes to excretion, I guess this is just a chart for you to reference, because I wanted to show you that if you did have excess of something, that you could balance and get rid of it and balance what you wanted. So does anyone have any questions about that? I don't know if I connected those two. But the little keep clean tab is for each element. It is associated with a part of the body, and so when it comes to noticing which one you need to keep balanced, you know, keeping the blood and the mucus and the vessels and the phlegm are what's going to basically keep you in balance, which is what's going to keep you less susceptible to unbalance or disease. So, and then a balanced diet actually is about ingredients. It's about choosing which ingredients you need and how you need to prepare it, depending on all of the things in your life. And so it's not like there's one diet that's best for one person or one type of people. A lot of it is dependent on your access, what you're doing, your habits, your sleep, the season, and how you prepare it. And it can be all of these things or some of these things or any variety of these things. So what you don't let go of is what you hold on to. So hold on to what's good. So the question is, what are you made of, right? And what do you want to bring into balance? And what can you do about it? So beyond nutrition, there's gratitude. So actually that has everything to do with nutrition too. Being thankful for the food you have and knowing that it is what you're choosing to put into your body. And share what you can when you can, as well as just being thankful for the food you have. So abundance mindset, this is another one from Kayla. I have everything I need and more. And I think that's actually a really good mindset to have when it comes to food as well. And that we treat people, not diseases. And that includes ourselves. I love this slide because can you see the glitter on her body moving? Yeah. So we are also stardust. So this is the metaphysical component, as if like the whole rest of this wasn't somewhat metaphysical, is that we have flowing through us the very same stuff that the universe is made out of. And so Carl Sagan, these are both quotes from Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson about how we are not figuratively but literally stardust, which means I think that really comes back to what we started off with saying is with when it comes to healing and when it comes to how we medicate ourselves. It's not binary at all. We are complex, and being able to look at ourselves and look at someone else and all the little nuance of healing, there's a lot of middle ground to cover. It's not just this thing means this. There are patterns within people, but that doesn't mean that, you know, you can't have your own say in your own healing. So in summary, all of it, you have the power to bring yourself into balance. If healing includes preventing, then you have the tools to stay aware and healthy. That has to do with body awareness, being aware of how your body works normally, being able to tell when you're out of balance, being able to see in someone else, you know. I think that's part of the benefit of having a community and being like, hey, you seem a bit off, and there's validity in that. That's part of the objective stance in treating people, as well as subjective. So you have the tools to stay aware because you have the tools to stay in as healthy of a state as you want to. And you will never have a purely objective view on yourself because you are the only person to have a subjective view on your own body state. So again, that's, you know, we have both for both other people and ourselves, but it's both. It's both. It's just both. And metabolic health is the name of the game. Support what your body already wants to do and believe that your body has the power to heal itself. Also, people get sick. Like if there's, You know, things go wrong in the body. That's part of having a body. One thing can go wrong. That doesn't mean we're sick in general, you know. That doesn't mean everything is wrong, but we were made to heal. And then also, you are what you eat and what you absorb and what you don't excrete. So that's it. That's what I have. And then next time we'll go over specifically macronutrients and micronutrients, which will be a lot. But I also hope that this kind of just blurred together. Hopefully not too blurry, because that's exhausting. But some of how we view taking care of ourselves, and how we view nutrition, and how we view what we're made of, because
I was always wondering what a love child between you and I and Jim McDonald might look like.
was that it?
That presentation was it.
Okay. I realize now there's a lot of theory in there, but I guess that's why I wanted to do that first, is because it's not just about the recommended daily allowances of our food. It's about what you need and what you can do, and what, you know, the best thing for you at the time might not be what like the book says it is. And maybe I just feel so, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. At the beginning, Sarah, we didn't really talk about kind of what you're up to and what's kind of brought you to this place. And so, because you haven't really got to spend much time with this group, if any. Why don't you give a little background about your college situation and embodiment?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking, is that I think I feel, I went to college for dietetics, and I really wanted to talk with people about wellness and nutrition, and dietetics really wasn't about those things. And most of what you could prescribe to people, because a dietitian can prescribe diets and, you know, teach people about nutrition, as well as help them and choose the right diet for them, but they weren't really allowed to talk about anything other than diet. And I just thought that was stupid, because most of who you are and how you handle the nutrition that you eat is more than just about the food that you put into your body. And so that's kind of the basis for really seeing holistic nutrition as being more than just the food that you put in. It's also a lot of holistic factors, like where you get it from, how you're preparing it, how healthy is your body before you're eating that thing. Do you have, is your GI excreting well? All those things can add to your health too. So an embodiment has just been about body awareness and having the awareness and choice to make the right nourishing decisions, whether that's food or nature connection, or moving your body in a more creative way. Has a lot to do with nourishment as well, again, and that's beyond nutrients. But nutrients are really important, which is, yeah, why we're going to talk about it. But
okay, how about embodied yoga?
Embodied, yeah, that's more, that's how you do the yoga. That's what that is about doing yoga and noticing how you're doing it. And that's, I mean, that's kind of what this is about. It is about how you do nutrition, and not eating. I mean, because I had a friend in dietetic school that ate the same thing every day. And I thought, good for her, because she's getting every perfect amount of nutrients that she needed. But she also got unhealthy at some point because she wasn't eating anything else. And I think the variety and the abundance of the planet is part of what keeps us healthy, and that's part of interacting with it and touching it. And yeah, the embodiment aspect is to see how you do the thing. And with yoga, if you do it at the same time every day in the same place and the same, if you have a lot of structure to your practice, whether that's food, whether that's movement, that is one way of doing it. And I think that's why I brought in the elemental aspect here, because there are other ways. And having those tools available to you means that you will choose with more awareness when it's time to choose, and that choice will be more appropriate for your body. Because if your and herbs are that way, I'm just rambling at this point, but if you have the herb that is going to provide you nourishment, but like, oh, I could point it in this direction, or I could eat it at this time, or I could just having more freedom.
Well, thanks, Sarah.
I hope that that was good.
Yeah, and then we'll be back together here very soon. Let me see. We are back together again on the 9th.
I have it in my planner.
9th of August, that's in 2 weeks. And you're going to do macronutrients and micronutrients, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So you all get about an hour reprieve today to have a life.
That was great, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good. Good. Thank you. And
Rachel, you're wearing your mask at your house?
No, I'm at my old shop.
Oh, you're at the old shop. Awesome. Hey, Maka, how you doing down there? She's in Texas now.
Loving it.
You're
Hi. Yes, I was going to pick it up my phone. I was reading. Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
Sarah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It was great. You know what I remember when you were talking about the nutrients? What Kayla says about why pills are not as effective as the food, because through the tongue they cannot know what enzymes they need to be released from the liver. I was like, oh, but I was too far from the phone. I'm sorry. I will.
That's a perfect. No, that's a perfect point. I mean, that's the difference in why our food can be such good medicine.
Your house.
We're meant to taste. We're meant to taste and touch and
see with taste buds. They make there for a reason too. Like, oh, see, I was listening to you all.
Okay.
So yeah,
good to see you.
So good to see you, everyone.
We'll all be together again.
Yay.
And Rachel, if you want to join us, I can always include you.
Yes, please. I'd love to.
Okay, will do.
Yay.
All right, bye.
Yeah, Kayla.
Bye, everyone.
Weekend.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.